Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Eden Maybon from lightcycleastrology.com. Happy fall equinox, everybody. Today I want to spend some time talking about what that means, the fall equinox, when the sun is entering the sign of Libra into a sign that ancient astrologers said was the sign of the sun's fall, or in modern times we say depression as well. So what does that mean? Why do we say that the sun is depressed or fallen in the sign of Libra? This is really interesting because we do know that at the fall time, we see the leaves falling off of the trees. So generally, we're getting that name from that, and that is true. But interestingly enough, in ancient astrology, having the sun move into the sign of Libra, into the sign of his fall, is also the beginning of a new season that is either called fall or autumn. So I think that's really cool that those two nomenclatures sort of match up like that. Now, this is one of the great four turnings of the year. We have the two solstices and we have the two equinoxes. I also want to sort of do a little demonstration on my astronomy program to give you guys a sense of what's happening. What does it mean that the sun is going through these big cardinal pivotal changes of the signs of Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, and now Libra? So we have these four great turnings of the sun throughout the year. What I want to do is share with you guys the astronomy program. This is Starry Night Pro. If you've never seen this, this is an amazing program. I actually started learning astrology on this program to get a sense of what was happening astronomically. That can really help. So you can see here. Now, what I want to do here is you can see the sun. I want to give you guys the horizon just for a moment. So you should be able to see this. So now the sun's gone, but now this gives you a sense of, okay, here's the world, and then we have the sky above the world. This is essentially where you would see the sun set, right? And you can see it's got this W standing for the westernmost equator moment on the horizon. And we also have the northwest and the southwest. So I'm going to take away the horizon just for a moment because the sun will dip above and below that as we go through this demonstration. But what I want you to do is watch the sun. So I'm going to actually go forward by days. We're going to see the sun track. Now watch where the sun goes, starts to move off of that W, the equator moment, and it heads towards this southwest, toward the left here. So it's heading south. So we're moving into more and more darkness as this happens. Now I'm going pretty fast through. You can actually see Venus there too, which is cool. But I'm going pretty fast through here, and we're going to come up on the winter solstice moment here, and you can already start to see, watch the sun. It starts to slow down in its leftward momentum there. It starts curving back up as we hit this December winter solstice here, right there, December 22nd or December 23rd. Solstice means sun stands still. So the sun looks like in the sky that it's standing still, but eventually it starts to make that big pivot and turn back towards the right or toward the north. And we're going to head back toward the equator again, the center of the planet. So it's heading back toward this W. It's going to pass it on the spring equinox. There it is right there. So this would be sunset on the spring equinox. The sun is right in the center of the planet here. It's not north or south. That's March 20. Now we're into Aries season. We're heading the other direction now. We're heading towards this northwest, toward the right, or towards the most northern declination that the sun travels through during the year if you live on the northern hemisphere. If you're on the southern hemisphere, of course, this is going to be heading more into fall and winter time now. But anyway, you can see now right around May here, 22nd, look at the sun. It's starting to slow down. It just goes by Aldebaran there in Taurus, and it's starting to make that great pivot again. And it's going to start heading back towards the left here. But before it does, it's going to stand still on the summer solstice moment. So you can see what's happening now. If I keep going forward here, now we see that the sun moves back towards the west. And even though we're in the wrong year here, we're in 2023, it's the same each year. The sun is moving back towards that W, signifying the equator. And we're going to stop right here. Here it comes to September 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. So that is the equinox. Let me just zoom in here. So this is the fall equinox. So it's equal because it's neither on the northern part of the hemisphere or closer on the southern part of the hemisphere. It's right in the middle of the globe. So it's that equator line on the globe. It's neither, going through the northern tropic or the southern tropic. So what this has an effect on is the light. And that is what astrology at the fundamental level is about. It's about the alternation of light and dark. The zodiac is a construct that is dealing with symbolism that we ascribed to different types of light and dark that we experience throughout the southern and northern hemispheres. Now, you could always flip that around. If you live on the southern hemisphere, you could use a zodiac that is inverted, but you don't have to because the language is symbolic. But essentially, the main takeaway here is that when the sun is due west or due east on the rising or setting, that's an equinox. So we're talking about a moment where, for a quick few days, there's going to be a very equal amount of daylight to darkness. At the fall equinox, what happens is that from that moment forward during the calendar year, the darkness increases. Now, you can also see that, okay, I should explain this too. Some people might be looking at this and they're like, Eden, why is Virgo? Where's Libra? Libra is supposed to be, where the equinox happens. Well, this has to do with precession of the equinoxes, where because the Earth wobbles for the past 2,000 years or so, the actual physical constellations have drifted away from the seasonal points of the year. That actually doesn't really matter. It doesn't really mean anything because, again, we are deriving the astrological symbolism from the alternation of light and dark, and that has to do with the seasons. So you don't have to get hung up on the actual constellations, but 2,000 years ago, the sun would have been traveling through the actual constellation in the heavens of Libra. And that constellation is of a scales, right? And so they're telling you that at this time of the year, the season is entering this balance between light and dark. But from that moment forward, we enter into the dark half of the year. And that's what I want to talk about next. So let me stop share screen here. So this is the time of year in Libra season begins the dark half of the year. So from the beginning of Libra to the end of Pisces, we have more minutes of darkness than we do minutes of light or daylight in a 24-hour period, or in one day. Now, from the spring equinox to the end of Virgo season, we have more minutes of daylight in a day than we do nighttime in a day. So you can divide the year up into these great big halves of the light half and the dark half. So when we're in the dark half of the year, we're in the seasons of fall and winter, right? And we're moving into a moment that prescribes the astrological symbolism from the light. So what does it mean when the sun is in its fall in the sign of Libra? It doesn't just mean that the leaves are falling off of the trees, although that is also true. Astrologically, it means that the sun is said to be entering a place where it is losing strength because it is being overcome by darkness, and it will be overcome by darkness for 6 months to come. So the ancients sort of looked at that and said, well, it's sort of like when we lose our life and we go to the next place. We enter into the underworld or the other world, or we reincarnate. But at that moment, it's like the spirit, the indwelling sun that animates our physical body. It's like it goes through some kind of metaphorical death. And we see this around us in the plants and in the trees and in the crops. Everything is sort of entering this underworld time of the year. So another symbolism is that if you think about the sun in your birth chart, that planet always represents some kind of central purpose in your life. It can represent, among other things, like talents, innate things that you have knowledge or specification in that gives you a distinguished knowledge based above other people, maybe. So if you're a Libra, you have this very distinguished knowledge of other people, of being real conscientious of social situations and things like that. Well, why is that? Because in the sun's home temple of Leo, Leos are said to be kind of like the center of attention. Well, that's the way the sun is in its natural domicile. It's saying that the sun naturally, as a planet, it's saying the sun naturally sort of gravitates things towards it. And we see this astronomically in the actual solar system because the sun is the center of the orbits of all the planets, right? So likewise, in a birth chart, the sun represents that central purpose that has to do with our direction in life, our central ambition in life, maybe our talents, or the way that we can shine some type of indwelling animist spirit that animates our body as an individual incarnate in the material realm. So when the sun goes into Libra, a sign that is ruled by Venus, you can often have Librans being very conscientious of other people. This is a quality that is sort of naturally antithetical to what the sun wants to do, which is be sort of the center, thinking about himself, either in a very gregarious and dramatic, but often very lovable and generous spirit, or in its more shadow side, it can be a little bit, selfish and self-serving. So in Libra, we're saying that the sun isn't naturally in that place where it has that self-serving kind of center gravitas to it because it's going into the underworld. It's being overtaken by a greater force of darkness. So that is really how we tie in the astrological symbolism with what is happening with the alternation of light and dark at the time of year, if that makes sense. So that's a little bit on that. Now, let's take a look at some of the transits for the moment, because this is a very unique equinox today, I think. So I've got the real-time clock up here, and this is set for, let me just go back a day here. Okay, well, actually, let's just go back to right now. Okay, here's right now. And so check this out, guys. So you can see that the sun is in this last few minutes of the last degree of Virgo. This is when I'm recording this, but if I go forward just a little bit, this is really, really cool. The sun enters, boom, 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 right about here. This is 3:33 or so my time in Hawaii. The sun enters the sign of Libra, the great turning point of one of the great 4 turning points of the year, and immediately gains co-presence with Mercury. Not only that, but Mercury is on the same degree as the sun, because Mercury, as you probably know, has been going retrograde. It's been shutting off my phone. I have had terrible service. I've had car breakdowns. I have had ATM cards not work. I've had ATM machines go down as I'm trying to use them. This, for me, this has been a very remarkable Mercury retrograde moment. But now Mercury and the sun are on the same degree, and in ancient astrology, this was called the Cazimi moment. Whenever a planet goes onto that same step as the sun, it enters the heart of the sun, and it is imbued with the sun's kingly power and divinity and authority. So this is a really good improvement for Mercury things in the retrograde moment. So Mercury likewise goes through a metaphorical death. As it's pulled back toward the sun, it gets burnt up. When it gets onto the same degree, it's the rendering process, the aha moment, the illuminative moment of the mind becoming very clear and totally understanding and sort of reducing down all of the experiences that the Mercury retrograde for us personally represents now begins to become clear and synthesized or rendered down. And it has the full weight of the authority of the king, the sun being the king. Watch this. As we go forward by days now, if we just go, let's see here. Yeah, just by the 23rd, you can see Mercury enters Virgo again. Wow, this is a very incredible moment right here, because Mercury going through this very positive moment where it goes on to the same degree as the sun, goes through this rendering, gets the authority of the king, sort of a lot of the negative connotations of the retrograde cycle are beginning to become alleviated and improve as it goes through the heart of the sun, but then it moves directly back into the sign of its exaltation and domicile of Virgo. That is incredible. So we're talking about Mercury things becoming vastly improved. So also, you can see that Mercury is co-present with Venus. Venus has been struggling in Virgo because Virgo is a sign of Venus's fall or depression because it's a Mercury-ruled sign. So having co-presence with Venus now, this also means that mercurial things are becoming improved, and Mercury is going to help out Venus because Mercury is the host to Venus in his own temple here. So this is interesting. Maybe this is something like you hear back from a job that you've been inquiring about, and maybe that job has something to do with something technical or analytical, and also something aesthetic or beauty wise. So I don't know, maybe it's like somebody that's been trying to get a job at a salon or something like that, and all of a sudden they find out now that they've gotten a job. There's an announcement that comes through from Mercury. It could be that you hear something in the mail that's really positive, some likewise as well. Maybe it's something on social media that you've been waiting for a response of. Maybe it's getting in contact with an old love flame or an old relationship that you've been separated by. Maybe it is even something like you've been matched with, you know, a lost relative you didn't even know you had on ancestry.com or something like this. There's something in the air where there's good communications that potentially are coming through right now. There's good mental clarity, and this is improving things that have to do with Venus, relationships, love, aesthetics, agreements, harmony, friendships, diplomacy, social situations, having fun. All of these things are sort of coalescing together and helping each other out and improving. So that is a really positive transit at the moment. We also are, you can see the new moon is coming through. We're in the last few days of the last cycle of the moon. So as the moon sweeps by, a few days later, we're going to get the new moon here right on the 25th. So we're sort of tying up these final loose ends as all of this thing is being rendered down. All of these things are being rendered down, and we're sort of tying up these very last you know, loose strings that we have on the old cycle of the lunar phase. So that is also a positive thing. Another thing that is happening is, let me see if I can get my annotation. In true Mercury retrograde fashion, my annotation has not been working, and I don't know why. But let me see, will it work? We also have, oh my gosh, it's working. Okay. We also have a trine forming between the planets Saturn and Mars. This is also a really good thing. This is, you know, the low hanging fruit on this interpretation would be something like you're able to take some action, and instead of like it being a quick burst of energy that sort of like peters out and doesn't go anywhere, Mars gives it some kind of staying power. So this could be, it's a very mental aspect because both planets are in mental social signs. So this could be something socially related or mentally related, some idea that you're able to take action on. And there's some sort of sticking power with Saturn coming into the mix right now. So that's also a good aspect that is happening. And we also have, we're still in, let's see here. Okay, the other aspect here is we have Venus forming an opposition now to the planet Neptune. Previously, we saw the sun going through this opposition last week, and so this was sort of dampening a lot of things out. Now Venus has a chance to go through this opposition. So one thing that is interesting is that all of these planets are sort of helping Venus out at the moment here coming up. We also are going to see that Venus goes through this potentially long lost love kind of idealism, and this is sort of spurred off by this opposition from Neptune, because Neptune can often have this very glittery, alluring. I like to think of Neptune as sort of like the lure on the end of a fish hook, and you cast your line into the water and it's like sparkly and the fish comes up and it's like, ooh, and it can't resist, right? For me, that's sort of Neptune. So when you have a Neptune Venus opposition, this can be obviously like something about love seeming very alluring or attractive, but because it's in an opposition, it might bring in something that is illusionary or somehow polarized in a way. It's like maybe you can't attain it, or maybe you're not sure if you're good enough, or maybe there's something maybe unattainable about what you're desiring or what you're wanting or what you find attractive at the moment. That is often what we see in oppositions, especially with Neptune. Neptune can have this very illusionary quality or delusional quality where we just don't see very clearly what it is, even though we're entering Mercury Cazimi, going back into exaltation. So this is an interesting mix, because on the one hand, it's like the heart doesn't fully, maybe the heart isn't so extremely clear on maybe something that is really attractive, but the mind really is. So my suggestion is if there is something very tempting and alluring that sort of has maybe an inner sense of like treachery to it, I would say go. Usually people say, "Oh, follow your heart." I would say actually follow your rationality on during this transit, because Mercury is in much more of a better position to sort of maybe understand what's really happening at the moment. Not that it's bad to follow your heart, but I would say that probably following the rational side of things could serve you a little bit better just during this transit at the moment. So that is pretty much what's going on for the equinox, all of the transits that are the major hitters during the week to come or so. So happy fall equinox, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to making some more videos here real soon as we get into the dark half of the year. I'm going to celebrate by having a feast to commemorate the dark half of the year. And I wish you guys all well, and I'll be back real soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.